Thus, no evidence could be found to underpin a finding or a conclusion that the president's comments or utterances in the regard were a continuous act to be considered or construed as active involvement in the business or paid work.
Lovisi lemvikelo mphakathi lithi ngemva kweliphenyo lithole ukuthi Mengameli Cyril Ramaphosa kude umthetho lawophula elizabeni lokwebiwa kwemali eplasini lakhe ePhalaphala.
Business are allowed to take part in all activities of business, in my sector, in mining and in energy.
Induna yemcebo lombiwa phansi kanye nemandla Gwede Mantashe ithi lelive futhi elinake Tindzaba lokweselakala kwemandla nephuya lokuhlasela iTakhamuti.
You can only play 11 players at the time, and sometimes you might not even utilize the whole squad like you did at WAFCON.
Umqeqeshi wabanyana nabanyana Desiree Ellis uthi kude umdlali lonesiqinisekiso sekuthi utawuqala nemidlalo kunzebe yemhlaba yalabasikati letawubanjelwa eAustralia naseNew Zealand ngebambisana. Ukunakuphila sinyelela khona sikubingelele mbukeli kwamukele Tindzaba teSiswati la ku TTT.
Chumana na SABC News. Shayele ngetindzaba letishisako. Tindzaba nje. Kusiluma indlebe lobanga ngitipi tingekethi nikhungethene ngumphakathi. Sishayele ku 011 714 6133 noma usithumele email ku news@sabc.co.za. iSABC News live lakho itimele ayithathi hlangothi.
Lovisi lemvikelo mphakathi lithi ngemva kweliphenyo lithole ukuthi Mengameli Cyril Ramaphosa kude umthetho lawophula elizabeni lokwebiwa kwemali eplasini lakhe ePhalaphala. Umvikelo mphakathi lobambe kwesikhashana ekholeka aqaleka ukhiphe lo mbiko lamuhla.
The president contended that he had been advised that the kind of interest he retains in Phalaphala farm as a game farm and cattle farming operation does not give rise to a conflict of interest or expose him to any situation involving the risk of a conflict between his official responsibilities and his private interests. He retains assets which he believed would not give rise to a conflict of interest, including his members' interest in the CC that operates Phalaphala. He also remains both a trustee and beneficiary of the Chibase Trust, which owns the farm property. In the abstract, ownership of a farm or corporate entity that runs a business on a farm is very unlikely to give rise to a conflict of interest in the performance of a member's functions as a member of the executive. In terms of the evidence placed before the public protector, the day-to-day operations of Phalaphala Wildlife are managed by Mr. von Velach as the general manager with the assistance of about 40 employees. Though occasionally when the president visits the farm, they would seek evidence from him, advice from him, and he would give guidance. The buffalo sales transaction between Mr. Ndlovu and Mr. Hazim took place in the absence of the president, thus indicating that he is not involved in the ordinary business decision-making largely. The evidence revealed that the president held discussions with farm managers, notably regarding the disposal of certain animals due to them being substandard. Considering the evidence in its entirety and the application of the law, there is no basis to exalt such deliberations to a degree where it can be held that there existed a real or potential conflict of interest on the part of the president regarding his duty as the head of cabinet and his interest in the game cattle farming at Phalaphala farm in violation of the code. Thus, no evidence could be found to underpin a finding or a conclusion that the president's comments or utterances in the regard were a continuous act to be considered or construed as active involvement in the business or paid work. Aggregated against the standard imposed by the Executive Ethics Code, it is found that there is no basis upon which to conclude that the President contravened Clause 2.1b, D, Clause 2.3D, F and G of the Executive Ethics Code, including the period following the alleged theft of the US dollars that took place on or about 9 February 2020 from his private house at Phala Farm in Waterberg, Limpopo. Therefore, the evidence does not support the allegation that the president's financial interest in game or cattle farming at Phala Farm exposes him to any situation involving the risk of a conflict between his official responsibilities and his private interests. Accordingly, the allegation that the president improperly and in violation of the provisions of the Executive Code exposed him to any risk of a conflict between his constitutional duties and obligations and his private interests arising from or affected by his alleged paid work at Phala Farm is not substantiated.
Takamoti tase Lady Smith esifundzeni iKwaZulu Natal tithi tifuna mengameli akhulume kabanti ngewetfulwa kwetinsita kuliyanzawo kufaka ekhatsi kweselakala kwemandi nalokunye. Inzatheli ye-SABC Simphiwe Makhanya ikhulumisene netakamoti takuliyanzawo letimele kuva inkulumo yamengameli Ramaphosa lokuliyanzawo ngaphasi kwelihlelo lolubitwa ngembizo.
Sibonga kakhulu bese sibingelele ke umbukeli wazo indaba ngalesi sikhathi sisho ukuthi ke silapha ke ku ward 29 ngaphansi ke kumkhandlu uthukela district nalapho khona ke kusingathwe khona imbizo ebizwe umengameli wezwe omnumzane uCyril Ramaphosa uzoxoxisana ke kabanzi nezakhamuzi ezakhelene ke lomphakathi namaphethelo ukuzwa ke kuzona ngeingqinamba ezibhekene nazo ikakhulukazi uma kuzwa ke udabeni lokulethwa kwezidingo zomphakathi. Njengamanje asamukele ke ubaba uMazibuko oyisakhamuzi sakhona lapha ozoba ingxenye yawo lomhlangano oqhubekayo ke namhlanje. Baba uMazibuko sikubingelele sikwamukele indabeni. Sibonga kakhulu baba ngesikhathi sakho. Bese siyakubuza ukuthi wena owakho umyalezo uthini namhlanje kumengameli wezwe njengoba ke ezokhuluma nezakhamuzi zalapha.
Ngibonge kakhulu mina nguzamo wakhe Mazibuko. Kakhulu nje kakhulu kumengameli esikulindele kakhulu ukufundisa intsha ngezolimo. Ezolimo impela siyibonayo ukuthi kufanele ithuthukiswe ngalendlela esimanga ngoba imali isenhlabathini. Uma ngabe sikhohlwe umhlabathi sikhohlwe impilo yethu. Ukuthi nje impela lapha kwezolimo impela sicela ukuthi agcizezele kakhulu ngoba babona nabamhlophe bengafuni nemali nje bayithole enhlabathini. Ngendlela mina engifisa ngayo ukuthi nje engathi kungathuthuswa kakhulu ezolimo.
Baba Mazibuko ngokubheka kwakho umhlangano walolu hlobo obizwe umengameli imbizo le ngakube isekhona yini ithemba lokuthi kukhona uhulumeni okungcono angakwenza ukuxazulula lezi inkinga okhuluma ngazo nabanye ke amalungu omphakathi abakhulume ngazo ezibandakanya ukulethwa kwedingo zomphakathi?
Hayi ngisenalo ithemba ukuthi cha kusengenzeka ngoba uma into seyiqalile kuthiwa into uma soyibophile la emhlabeni noNkulunkulu uba khona lapho kuleyo nto bese seyiphasisa. Yeah.
Siyabonga kakhulu baba Mazibuko isikhathi sakho.
Yebo ngiyathokoza kakhulu.
Okay. Umbono ke lo kababa uMazibuko oyingxenye yawo ke umhlangano lo obizwe umengameli wezwe omnumzane ke uCyril Ramaphosa kuzokhumbuleka ke ukuthi lembizo ke esikhombisa ke eyenzakala lapha esifundazweni kwaZulu Natal lezi ezinye ezisithupha bezenzakala ke ezifundazweni ke ezehlukene zezwe esikutholayo ke uma ngabe sikhuluma nezakhamuzi la ukuthi noma zikhona inselelo umphakathi obhekene nazo babalule udaba lokuthi ke amanzi awekho, amanzi ahlanzekile emgaqo, imitholampilo ayikho, nezikole ziyashoda kanjalo ke nodaba ke lwe-network abathi ke ihlupha kakhulu kule ndawo esompeleni bathi ayikho. Uma ngabe ufuna nje ukuthi usebenzise umakhalekhukhwini wakho kumele ukwazi ukuhamba ibanga elide impela ukuze ufinyelele endaweni ethe ukuba maphezudlwana khona ke umakhalekhukhwini wakho uzokwazi ukuthi usebenze. Kepha ke umyalezo abawukhiphayo namhlanje iloyo wethemba lokuthi ke uhulumeni mangabe sefikile la lukhona uguquko oluzokuba khona ikakhulukazi uma ke kuzwa ke udabeni ke oluthinta idingo zokulethwa komphakathi. Asibusele intambo kwenegoli.
Indvuna yemcebo lombiwa phasi kanye nemandla kwedemantashe itsilive kufuthi linake elitsaba lokweselakala kwemandla nephuya lokuhlasela itakhamuti. Mantashe uphinze wakhuluma kabandi nangalokuhamba kagesi ngenhloso yokumonga.
Business are allowed to take part in all activities of business. In my sector, in mining and in energy. That's why you'll find that now on the new renewable energy, there are companies that are wholly owned by South Africans and there are companies that are black owned. And in mining, you are having major mining companies that are owned by black people. So there's a growing presence of black business in the space of business, and we're encouraging that. And what we are trying to emphasize to every time we talk to them, black business is not a charity. Black business must put the skin on the fire to build their business, build their wealth, and then enjoy it. That's it.
And coal has been the theme over the last 2 days. One of the things that you said this morning is we can't breathe in the dark. And black businesses, as you just said, still have major potential in untapping that. So how do we balance that just transition with coal?
I don't know. I've seen a number of European countries retreating from their position. Sweden, for example, declared that they would be dependent only on renewables 100%. They have changed that position. They are discovering in the field that they need a base load. And that's why they say that policy is now changed. And a number of countries in Europe are beginning to drift back to fossil fuel and coal. And it will happen with us as well. We're still excited now. We want to switch off coal now and think that everything will go well. I think part of the load shedding that we're experiencing was an effort to move out of coal quicker than we could. And as a result of that, we allowed many of the ESCOM coal generating power stations to collapse under our nose because we thought that they're a dirty product and the result was darkness.
And Minister, just finally, South Africa's natural gas reserves remains largely untapped, and we're seeing those large international companies such as Russia's Gazprom looking to really partner with African countries, and South Africa being at the center of that. How are we working, government and private sector, because it is quite finance heavy? How are we getting, those skills to black businesses so that they can also be part of that boom?
If they partner with majors, they will acquire the skills and grow into them. Many of the major black companies today started as partners that are today major companies. And it will happen in the energy, to happen in any other sector. So they must partner with those companies. Energy, let's say gas and oil in South Africa remains untapped. And with a lot of it, we're beginning to sense the presence of gas and oil in the country. We must exploit it. We'll change the economic performance.
Minister, thank you so much.
Minister, also talking about the issue of the bid windows, encouraging businesses here to also take advantage of that as well. Maybe let us in on how are we faring on that end in terms of bid windows 7 and 8 that will then see it just coming out to the public.
I can talk about bid window 6, where 49% was South African. Which is a major progress from 0 to 49. We are continuing to improve on that in the area of South African companies participating in the renewable energy space. We are encouraging it. We know that it's not about wishing, it's about access to capital, it's about access to skills, it's about support you get to do it. And we're hoping we'll improve on that.
What have been your concerns? Because you're talking about the just energy transition just being just and equitable, that it must put the needs of South Africans first if we are to tap into that space. What have been your concerns as the department? My concern is when we put a lot of emphasis on decarbonization at the expense of energy poverty. And if we're not paying attention to energy poverty, we just focus on decarbonization, we are going to have a different crisis into the future. As we deal with decarbonization, we must address energy poverty, allow our people to access electricity at an affordable price.
You can't have people in the villages having access to electricity, but they use it for lighting. For space heating and cooking, they still use wood and paraffin. That must change.
Bugebengu buseseyindvo lesetulu kuleli kanzi kwethulwa kwenqubomgomo kude kulisane nebugebengu kuseseyingcinamba. Lokhu kuvakaliswe ngukhomishana wemisebenzi yesive Professor Somadoda Fikeni. Professor Fikeni bekakhuluma ingqungqutheleni yesifundza yekuvikela bugebengu eMpumalanga lebanjele White River. Kubonakele tenyuka tehlakalo tebugebengu lofaka ekhatsi kubulala nekugagadlela. Kanzi-ke ngale ngqungquthela kuhloswe ngayo kutfola tindlela letingasetjentiswa tekulisana nalobugebengu.
Sekunokukhathateka ngelizinga lelisetulu ebugebengu bekuyamana lokufaka ekhatsi kubulala nokudlwengula.
Kidnapping are increasing, but we're still having a challenge with the matter that most of the time when you look into the place of occurrences and the analysis, it's simply showing that most of them are occurring at home, where during the house robberies where people are being killed. Sometimes people are being killed at the street with all this alcohol consumption that we are having. The taverns that are also sometimes giving us some challenges.
Labo ke labolusana bugebengu emiphakathini bathi-ke buyinkinga lenkulu.
We have been unable to implement some of the program due to the insufficient resources.
Le ngqungquthela yesifundza-ke ihlose kuta nemacebo ekulisana bugebengu nekuqinisekisa-ke ukuthi-ke bahlukunyetwa bayalutfola lusido. Hulumende-ke sovete kukhathateka ngebugebengu lobunelidlame kulesifundza.
We can holistically review the functioning of police services in our province so that we may achieve integration and coordination across the 90 police stations in the province. The resolutions of this crime prevention summit will play a significant role in developing our posture for the engagement as government.
Njingalwati Somadoda Fikeni uthi-ke hulumende uyehluleka kuchamuka nemigomo lecinile letawuliswana nebugebengu.
If we are not honest about the problem, everything else we're going to do in the next 2 days does not really matter. And being honest about why this country has so many good policies and such poor implementation. I talk to some colleagues from other countries, they say we do not have the kinds of millions South Africa has, so we go to its website and take its policies.
Le ngqungquthela-ke emalanga lamabili itawugcila tuwe imigomo netinhlelo letawusetjentiswa kulwisana nebugebengu.
Hulumende wesifundza eMpumalanga ubambe ingqungquthela yemalanga lamabili lecala itolo lekuhlose ngayo kulwisana nebugebengu lobuhlasele lesifundza. Konaba-ke kabandi ngale ngqungquthela samukela lokhulumela litiko letekuphepha nekuvikeleka kwemphakathi eMpumalanga Mweti Musi. Asikubingelele Musi, sikwamukele Tindzaba teSiswati la DTT.
Ngibingelele nababukeli beTindzaba.
Musi, ingabe yini inhloso yale ngqungquthela?
Ngiyithela le namhlanje inhloso yalo ukuthi isithole ama-stakeholders ahlukahlukene sikhulumisane ngezindlela letisha lesingasebenzisa ekulwisane nobugebengu. Kuye kwaba nama-commissions la ahlukahlukene bekayi-4 la bekabuka khona ama-challenges lesinawo baproposa lawo ama-recommendations. Uma kayivala namhlanje undunankulu uma-ke Refile Mtsweni-Tsipane acknowledgile ukuthi lama commissions makariport acknowledgile ukuthi akhona ama-challenges bapropose netindlela letisha letingatisebenzisa ukuthi simprove. Kodwa-ke undunankulu udirecte ama-officials ukuthi funa baqinisekise ukuthi lama-resolutions wale summit leyo kumele-ke ukuthi-ke incorporate into ama-programs lakhona uhulumeni kuqinisekisa ukuthi atholakala ukuthi kuyempuveka. Kodwa kukhulunyile ngetindlela eziningi letifaka phakathi kungakhiphi kwemingcele yethu border security, kukhulunyile futhi nangetidakamizwa nale nto lokubitwa ukuthi i-mob justice ne-criminal justice system ukuthi kuphi la kungayiphuka khona kuqinisekisa ukuthi ama-cases or amacala la khona ebugebengu ayalandzeleleka ngendlela yakhona ayavaleka ngendlela yakhona awatholakali angafinyeleli ekugcineni nale role ekumele idlalwe imiphakathi ekuqinisekiseni ukuthi ngempela siyayincoba sabuncoba lokuba khona kobugebengu ekusindeni sasempumalanga.
Bunyenti-ke ebugebengu lebendekako esifundeni sempumalanga libonakala futhi linika emandla tehlakalo kwebiwa kwetimoto letitfola tigulane nekuhlaselwa kwebahlengikati etibhedlela tesifundza ingabe yini neleniyendako ukulwisana nalesimo?
I-summit ibukile konke lokho kodwa-ke kutawubuketa le ndlela i-criminal justice isebenza ngayo ikhulunyiwe futhi nale ndaba yama-resources ema-police station ukuthi kungento kanjani ukuqinisekisa ukuthi amaphoyisa ayaresponda ngendlela yakhona nale ndlela yokulisana nekuba khona kwetidakamizwa nokuqiniswa kwemincele amaboda wethu nokuqinisekisa ukuthi i-community kumele idlala i-role lekumele idlale ema-communitini nalama-structures lakhona laphikisana awodwa ekuliseni nobugebengu ne-role nolenzima lekumele idlalwe ama-private security companies ekusebenzisaneni namaphoyisa ekuliseni nebugebengu kuningi lokuthi awendeka kodwa lokhu kumele kwendeke ukuthi njengoba besibuka lama-strategy lesasebenzisa currently ngikuphi la singayiphruva khona uqinisekisa ukuthi impi yethu lesibhekela nokulwisana nebugebengu iyaphumelela kodwa-ke lekumele kucace kahle kukhulunyiwe ukuthi kumele ukuthi sisebenzisane la mahlelo wonke la khona sibe nalesi kubita ukuthi i-integrated approach singazi munye angenti kwakhe lapho i-department ingendiyayo yapho yodwa laphaya labanye bende babo ufuna sibamisaneni so that konke lesikwendako ukuthi khona ukuthi kubonakala kube ne-impact emiphakathini yethu.
Njengoba sathi-ke ukuthi isifundza sempumalanga sisondelene nemavele amabili kuyiSwatini neMozambique ingabe songana nomsebenzi lo wangihulumende wesifundza kulisana nebugebengu lebendeka kulamaheke akuleli lafake ekhathi osho kunelibombo?
Usasemningi kakhulu kungakho indaba ye-border security nayo kukhulunyiwe ngayo kakhulu ukuthi kumele kuthole indlela ukuthi siqinisekise ukuthi ama-border wethu ayaphepha akubi thelawayeka ngoba esikhathi esiningi kusetshenziswa nalama informal entrances kodwa-ke omningi umsebenzi lo sewendile wahulumeni kakhulukazi lapha kulekale bomo ngokuvula imigodi ngokudika ama-trenches ukuqinisekisa ukuthi laba enda letinto tokundlulisa into abakhona ukugwenda lokho kodwa-ke lokunye kutawubuka kulama-recommendations layindiwe kulawa ama-commissions.
Mwethi ingabe niyatibekela yini njengahulumende i-deadline yokuthi ngalesi sikhathi leso kufanele kube sekwendeke sihambe inzima lengaka nobe niyakhuluma kulama summit kuphume tindzaba tekuthi kufanele kwendekeni niyakwetfula lokho linikhuluma ngako na?
Kunjalo undunankulu ushito ukuthi kutawuba ne-mechanism yokumonitora lama-resolutions lawo ama-deadlines ayawusetha njengoba ama-resolutions sekathethe atawubekelwa nesikhathi afakwe kuma-program of actions we-government kutawuba nama-reports la atawuthula nelikota kuqinisekisa ukuthi abantu bayaba-accountable for into lebathembise kutenda lesikhathi kukhulunywa lapho le-summit.
Ingabe budlelwane benu netakhamuti esifundza njengoba sathi ukuthi letigilamkhuba bantu labaphila emphakathini bunjani budlelwane benu?
Bunjani bamaphoyisa kuyangenzayo njengoba kune-CPF kukhona la bungekho buhle bona kodwa-ke ngaso ngesikhathi i-department nayo iyatama ukuthi iqinisekise ukuthi kuba nama-relationship la right between yona nemiphakathi.
Italo mholi we-Contralesa Khoshi Lamek Mkwena ukhale ngetehlakalo tekubulawa kwabaholi benzabuko ingabe ingakanani inzima lesenihambile kusebenzisana nemaphoyisa kulwisana nekubulawa kwabaholi benzabuko?
Kunjalo kukhulunyiwe indzaba ye-role lekumele idlalwe abaholi benzabuko sazi that ikhona i-bill lese-parliament lekumele ukuthi ishaywe umthetho ukuqinisekisa ukuthi bayabamba ichaza kodwa-ke sibe ne-case neyodwa so far la kwahlasela khona the late chief minister and then emva kwesikhashana lesincane kwatholakala kubulawa umfowabo so siyacanga ukuthi i-crime njengoba yenzeka iyafekta wonke umuntu including ona lamakhosi kungako kubalulekile ukuthi nabo bayibambe bayidlale irole yabo baqinisekise ukuthi bayasifaka sandla in their own community sekubiseni nebugebengu.
Njengoba-ke iphetha lengcungcuthela lamuhla ingabe ngekubuka kwakho nikuzuzile lokhu benikufuna?
ngicabanga ukuthi lokho kufuna sidokubona uma sekuba ne-impact in terms of ukwehla kwelizinga lebugebengu emiphakathini yethu nokusebenzisana kwama-stakeholders kahlukene including ama-departments namalunga we-criminal justice system.
Sesiphetha-ke Musi, ingabe yini lofuna kuyikhuluma emavakho ekugcina nobe ukhuthata imiphakathi uthini ikakhulukazi ngendaba tebugebengu?
Siyabacela ukuthi ngaphandle kokusebenzisana nomphakathi angeke siyinqobe ngebugebengu kodwa-ke lokho akusho ukuthi kumele ukuthi bathathele umthetho entandeni abasebenzisane namaphoyisa baparticipate kuma-stakeholders kuma-CTF structures nakumanye ama-structures la khona because wonke umuntu ubelonga to a certain community so if wonke umuntu angaparticipate kulawo ma-structures kuma-communities wabo singayinqoba impi yokulwisana nebugebengu.
Asibonge kakhulu Musi isikhathi sakho.
Bongathina kakhulu nababukeli emakhaya.
Iparlamente itichithile tinsolo letithi angeke yende lutho nangabe lelive lingabukana nekubanjwa kwembuso ngabhongwane futhi lokhu kutangemva kokuthi bosomlomo beparlamente babambe umhlangano nenhloko yemajaji lamuhla kudzingidwa lona loludzaba.
Tinkhulumiswane tePhalamende nenhloko yemajaji Raymond Zondo tivete kutsi tiphimiselo ta Zondo tite ngemuva kwetigameko letendeka phambilini lapho emavoti lamanenge ePhalamende avuna bantfu lebekufute babukane nesandla semtsetfo. IPhalamende igcizelele kutsi lokhu kuyingcenye yentsandvo yelinengi.
Parliament is made up of parties that have been elected into Parliament. And parties, when they are voting with the party's mandate, it doesn't necessarily mean that Parliament is the one that should take responsibility for how parties exercise their democratic right within the sphere of Parliament or in the space of Parliament.
Akhuluma nebetindzaba kulandzela kukhulumisana na Zondo, somlomo wePhalamende uvumile ukuthi tiphimiselo ta Zondo tibetfusile. IPhalamende ithi ayikho lenvo lethi kude lokwendiwa kusukela kwaphuma umbiko welikhomishana la Zondo.
You can't say nothing has been done by Parliament. We here as the EAs, our conscience is very clear that we did everything to the latter.
IPhalamende ithi kude lapho lelikhomishana lithi kufute iphindze ilibikele ngalesekwendile ngalombiko walelikhomishana. Emalunga ePhalamende agcizelele ukuthi atimisele kuthathela bonke bantfu labathintsekako kulombiko welikhomishana la Zondo tinyathelo.
Emacala labukene netikhulta phambilini te-Transnet Bob Brian Mulife Anoj Singh nalabanye labasolwa nabo lihlehliselwe kumhla tinge-28 ngenyanga yeNyoni. Luphiko lwetekushushisa luthi lelicala litawubuyela enkantolo lapho kungahle kubekwe lelinye ilanga futhi lenkantolo nangabe kude lokubambelelako. Labasolwa babukene nemacala lafaka ekhatsi tinsolo tekukhwabanisa inkohlakalo kwephula umtsetfo wekulawulwa kwemali nekushushumbiswa ngemali ngalokungekho emtsetfweni.
Lelicala lihlehliselwe ekupheleni kwenyanga yeNyoni lobeka ngumphathi lomkhulu we-Eskom Siyabonga Gama utawubuyela enkantolo mhla 13 ngenyanga yengci lapho kulindeleke ukuthi afake isicelo sekuthi kucekiswe imibandzela yebail yakhe. Kanti na Daniel Roy longumcondzisi we-Trillion Asset utawubuyela mhla 18 kule nyanga letako kute uva ngemphumela wesicelo sakhe sekucekiswa kwimibandzela yebail yakhe. Lehhovisi lebashushisi lithi mhla tinge-28 kutawuhlolwa ukuthi ingabe kukhona yini lekufute kudzingidwe kulelicala. Ithi kungahle kwenteke futhi ukuthi lelicala lithunyelwe enkantolo lephakeme kude kuqale kuthethwa kwalo.
The main one for all the accused is the 28th of September, like you've rightly stated. This is for it's possibly coming back to court and possibly setting a high court date if there aren't any more delays.
Inhlangano lilisana nebugebengu lobuyamene nentsela ithi khathatekile ngoba bongcondvo bekubamba lelive ngabhongwane lekumndeni wakagupta solo abakaboshwa.
We hope today that case will be fast-tracked so that it sets a good precedence for all the people who have been involved in state capture cases.
Labasolwa babukene nemacala lafaka ekhathi kukhwabanisa inkhohlakalo kushushumbisa imali ngalokungemthetho lokuyamene nemali lengu 405 million emarandi lebuya eTransnet.
Tenyukile ke tehlakalo tekufundwa kubantwana kuleli kufaka ekhathi nasesifundzeni eMpumalanga egcingweni ngesamukela Selvi Mhlala lokukhulumela emaphoyisa eMpumalanga kuva kabandi ngaletehlakalo asikubingelele Mhlala sikwamukele Tindzaba teSiswati la DTT.
Ngiyabingelela nomphakathi ngibingelela ngabukeli nabalaleli bonke.
Mhlala ingabe emaphoyisa eMpumalanga anatiphi tinhlelo letingasita ekulwisaneni netinhlelo tekufundwa netehlakalo tekufundwa kwabantwana njengoba ke tibonakala tanza.
Mhlakazi angisho ngithi la kithi sinawo ama programs la sala siwalandela siyomphakathini sikhulumishana nabantu mayelana nokulahleka kwabantwana futhi kakhulukazi sinama program naso sinishayo ey'kolweni njengabo adopted school sikhulumishana nabantwana besikole nabo sibaxwayisha ngendlela yokuziphatha nokuthi bayenze njani banga hambe nama strangers kanjalo and futhi umsakazi okunye lokusukwenzayo sisebenzana kakhulu nama CPFs wethu laba khona ukuthi basilekelele leni information bayilethe la emphakathini so sinamahlelo amaningi lapho khona sithumela umlayezo sithumela information emphakathini.
Emahlebedi athi labantwana nyalo bathengisela lamanye imave ngekubona kwakho ke ngabe ngikuphi la kuceka khona futhi ngabe kusho ukuthini ngemsebenzi lo wendiwa kulemncele lehlukenisa leli nalamanye imave.
Msakazi angisho ngithi information le circulate ku social media umphakathi ufanele uqaphele ngayo before bayiconsume before bayisebenzise. I-information le circulate kwamanje akekho umuntu lowafikile e-police station azoreporta ukuthi umntwana wakhe uthunjiwe kodwa message yasirculate kumakhalekhukhwini kanjalo bathi abantwana bayathunjwa eNaspoti bahanjiswa kulamanye amazwe bafakwa emaplastikini kanjalo msakazi ngihlolile nakuma station asedutana ayikho report le formal le khona akekho nomuntu oyiwani lowafikile kithi athi umntwana wakhe uthunjiwe ke lokho ngikhuluma ngako ngamahlelo oprotect ukuthunjwa kwabantwana iloko sikusebenza ngoba siya prevent kodwa kwanyana kukhona le information ya circulate nasathi ukuthi ibuyathi le information kodwa kithi simaphoyisa sayithatha njenge false information siyacela ukuthi noma ngibani lo ane ubufakazi or lo mhlambe lento eyamenzakalela ezikithi azoyireport kumaphoyisa ukuthi sikhona ukuthi sirecord as information lesinasho sithi eqiniso sibona ukuthi senza kanjani abantu bangaphenika ngoba kwamanje abantu bayaphenika enenye nale information aseqiniso umsakazi.
Ingabe bakhona ke lababoshiwe ngalamacala tithini kanti netibalo takamuva ngelinani lebugebengu lofuthi bona lobo.
Msakazi indaba ye-kidnapping yona lamacala la sikeza banawo kidnapping la eMpumalanga abantu bakhona bake batholakala and futhi basola bake batholakala because kakhulukazi basebenzisa imoto and then mangisakhumbula kahle ukuba imoto inhlobo Corolla ngoba nemoto ePolo labo basola labo bonke bake batholakala baboshwa and amanye amacala okhona wokidnapping uthola ukuthi amanye asimaqiniso umuntu ubalekile ekhaya ubalekile ngoba bekumpela sonto then mafanele abuye ekhaya ubona ukuthi uyinkinga ucreate information yamanga ukuthi ekhaya nabakathunjiwe kanjalo abanye baphinde bafuna imali ransom ukuthi lo muntu bamkhululeke labo bona bake baboshwa.
Ngembuke ukuthi ke sikudedele Mhlala uthini umthetho ngekusetshenziswa kwesibhamu ikakhulukati kumkhakha wemaphoyisa njengoba ke naku kubonakele umuntu lomdvuna lekuthiwa uliphoyisa adubula lomunye egameni lekuthi bekativikela sisetshenziswa kugcine phi isibhamu semthetho.
Umthetho wesibhamu wala eSouth Africa ilizwe lonke usilandela umthetho controls Firearm Controls Act 60 ya 2000 and awukho umunye umthetho special kunjalo ke nakithi amaphoyisa sawulandela lo umthetho ukhuluma kahle kamhlophe ngalehla ngothi lethu simaphoyisa isibhamu umarket oshiwe une license yakhona ungakhona ukuthi usupply sala emsebenzini nazakunikeza sona usiphatha full time kodwa ke inkomo le fanele uyilandele ngile nkomo le khona ku Firearm Controls Act le shokona ukuthi isibhamu fanele usiphathe kahle fanele usiphatha ngoba ngithi isimaphoyisa ngingazi ukuthi iweapon akusi weapon kuphela but i-instrument yakho yokusebenza itool yakho yokusebenza ufanele uyisebenzise kahle ukomita icrime nalesibhamu sasemsebenzini kuyafana nesigebengu bakutreata njengesigebengu so umthetho usho kanjalo ke akukho la bathi isibhamu usibambe umhlaba futhi umthetho wethu simaphoyisa awuvume kahle ngathi wonke umuntu umthetho awuvumi ukuthi umuntu athathe isibhamu aphinde asebenzise idakamizwa or aphuze utshwala mawuphethe isibhamu uphuze utshwala inkinga enkulu yabe leyo ufanele uthathe leso sibhamu uyoshiya ekhaya yazi ukuthi abantu bazawuthi abahlali babona abantu baphethe i-firearm or ibhamu kuma-public places umthetho awuwaleli ukuphatha isibhamu ku-public place kodwa uthi isibhamu sifanele sihlale kahle la sifanele sihlale khona esikhwameni sakhona and usiphathe kahle.
Asibonga kakhulu mhlala sikhathi sakho ngiselvi mhlala lokukhulumela emaphoyisa asembumalanga. Iqembu le-DA lende libido ngekuthi umvikelo womphakathi endeliphenyo ngelisekela lamengameli Paul Mashatile lobanzakanyeka ekuhlomuleni kwemathenda. Lenhlangano iphinze yathi kumele kuphenywe namabhalane jikelele we-ANC fikile mbalula ngetinsolo tekubolekwa tigitsi letinzatfu temarandi lekusolwa kutsi uthenge ngato likhaya khona lapha eJozi. Mbalula kanye naMashatile batiphikile letinsolo.
Liqembu le-DA selifake isikhalo ofisini lemvikelo womphakathi lithi letinsolo letibhekene labaholi ababili be-ANC timatima kakhulu.
When a senior government leader and the deputy president of the country is at the center of allegations that involve people who are doing business with the state, it faces a potential conflict of interest. It exposes a potential contravention of the Executive Members Ethics Act. And it is on that basis that we want this investigation done.
I-DA isilomvikeli womphakathi kumele aphinze aphenye kabanzi ngetinvo tangasese letahlonyulwa ngoMashatile njengetisebenti sahulumende.
On your secondary question regarding pursuing a parliamentary process in terms of the executive, the members' ethics, I think that is a channel that is in the pipeline. We are not ruling it out. It is a channel that is in the pipeline. We are also in the background looking at the history and the record of disclosures by Mr. Mashatile from the time that he was a member of the provincial legislature and MEC and throughout his time as a member of parliament.
Liqembu leliphikisako lithi lifuna nokuthi kuphenywe mbalula kulandzela ukuthinzeka kwakhe tuketinsolo letithi ngalesikhathi ayindvuna yetemidlalo waboleka imali etigisi letinzatfu temarandi tukamfato walona bekangumphathi kulikhomishana lelotho kude athenge indlu yakanokusho.
When you have this kind of instance where funds somehow find a back channel into the pockets of politicians, we are compromising the very needy South Africans who, if they get allocated those funds, they'll make a difference in their lives.
Bobabili Mbalula naMashatile batiphikile letinsolo.
Letinye nasibuye titolo. Umphakathi losenyakatho ye-Alwali eMpumalanga Kapa wenda libido lokuthi betemthetho baqinise isandla ekulisaneni nekusetshenziswa kabi kwetidakamizwa kule ndzawo.
Water, a basic human right, left unprotected and neglected. As South Africans are left vulnerable to poor and failing infrastructure, waterborne diseases, unprecedented droughts and floods, we take a closer look at the country's decaying basic water services and its devastating knock-on effects on the well-being of all South Africans. SABC News, independent, impartial.
Get in touch with SABC News. Call us if you have any news leads, stories, tip-offs, or simply issues you are grappling with as a community. Call us on 011-714-6133. Alternatively, email us at news@sabc.co.za. SABC News, your voice, independent and impartial.
SABC News, hello.
If you want to know what's going on around the world, there's only one place to be.
Investors are going to be looking out for various key metrics which credit rating agencies find interesting as well.
Asikwamukele mbukeli esigabeni sesibili seTindzaba teSiswati la kithi sicubeka nato. Umphakathi losenyakatho ye-Alwali eMpumalanga Kapa uwendalibito lwekuthi betemthetho baqinisa isandla ekulwisaneni nekusetshenziswa kabi kwetidzakamiva kulendzawo. Lokhu kulandzela kubulawa ngesihluku kwagogo loneminyaka lenge-17 lekusola ukuthi kwendiwe ngumtukulu wakhe loneminyaka lenge-30 nalekusola ukuthi udla tidzakamiva. Sikwexayise mbukeli loludzaba lolulandzelako lingahlali kahle kulabanye babukeli.
Lesi ngulesinye isigameko sekubulawa kwebantu labasikati. Umndeni wemufi ufuna ukuthi umsolwa atfole kujeziswa mayelana naloludzaba. Bathi basadidekile ukuthi kungaba yini imbangela leholele ukuthi abulale ngesihluku.
The body, I tried to check. I don't know whether the titties were there, the eyes were sitting, everything was done. I even didn't see the face. His grandmother was naked. Smelling so bad.
Umsolwa uboshiwe ubekwe licala lekubulala.
Kona ukuthi kubula umuntu omkhulu kangaka kunama-70 eminyaka ekwabulawa ngumzukulwane wakhe lo ebomondla emkhathalela lapha ekhaya. Lo ndicela ukuthi umntwana lo ngokwalapha kuye emzimbeni ebengaphili kuye.
Lesehlakalo sisuse inkulumo mbikiswano ngelizinga lelisetulu lebugebengu nekusetshenziswa kabi kwetidzakamiva kulesifundza.
Ebezi abuser i-drugs but ebengaphili kakuhle engaphilisi umakhulu kakuhle ebengaphilisi umakhulu kakuhle for a long time but sizama nomakhulu ezama ukwenzela esisizukulu sakhe silunge.
Umsolwa utawuvela enkantolo yamanje lekungilapho ayofaka khona isicelo sebail bosonhlala kahle bathunyelwe kulomndeni ukuthi bayoluleka ngekwengqondo.
Bangetulu kwama-80 abafunzi labakhulelwe kusukela ngenyanga yaBhimbidvwane kuya kuyenhlaba kulomnyaka eMpumalanga Kapa kanzi isigodi i-Alfred Nzo sambetulu ngetinombolo njengobe bange-28 kulandzele iChris Hani lehleli e-16 bese kuthi-ke iNelson Mandela Bay babe-14. Litiko letemfundvo lithi kukhulelwa kwebafunzi kuyangeta kule nkinga yekuyekela kwabo sikolo kanti-ke lokhu kungaholela ukuthi babe nelikusasa leliphuyile.
Andiswa lekungasilo ligama lakhe wakhulelwa ngalesikhathi afunza amatikuletsheni kanti lokhu kweholele ekutheni angasakhona ukuchubeka netifundvo takhe. Sifiso sakhe ukuthi atfole umsebenzi kude akhone kondla umntfwana wakhe.
My life changed after falling pregnant. I didn't get good results for my matric and I could not upgrade because I have to look after the child. I can't further my studies anymore. I wanted to pursue my studies in media and communication.
Labafunzi labakhulelwe labange-18 kulesifundza lonyaka basemkhatsini kweminyaka leli-15 kuya kuli-17. Kanti babili babo basolelwa ukuthi bekhuleliswe bothishela.
Those educators have been suspended and the department is finalizing those cases.
Litiko lithi linetinhlelo tekufundzisa abafunzi ukuthi bangadiyamanisi nemacansi.
Annually, we have kids that are falling pregnant. Hence, we have these programs that are tailor-made to ensure that we educate them.
Litiko letemfundvo lithi lihlele tinhlelo tekufundzisa abafundzisi labasekhulelwe nekucinisekisa ukuthi bayabuyela esikolweni ukuze bacethelele tifundvo tabo.
Mengameli Cyril Ramaphosa wende libito kumalunga Southern African Customs Union ukuthi aqinise lihlelo lokuthengiselana kwemave ase-Afrika ngaphandle kwembanzela. Ramaphosa uthi emave langaphasi kwalenyunyana anayo imali yokuthuthukisa takhiwo ncandi letiseningizimu ne-Afrika. Mengameli bekethula inkulumo yokungcungcuthela yesakhu libanjwe eveni laseSwatini.
Emalunga esakhu sekakhiphe lubito lokuthi ke kuqiniswe budlelwane bekusebenzisana.
We are well positioned, Your Majesty, heads of state and government, to use our collective revenues to support industrial capacity and infrastructure development within the SACU Union.
Mengameli Ramaphosa uthi kunenge lokungentiwa ekuthuthukiseni emave laseningizimu ne-Afrika. Akhuluma kungcungcuthela yesiphohlongo yesakhu, Mengameli uthi ke le ngcungcuthela lonyaka kumele igcile kakhulu etindzabeni temnotfo nekuqinisa uhlelo lokuthengiselana ngaphandle kwemibandzela.
We should prioritize economic infrastructure, especially scaling up renewable energy capacity, our roads, our railways, ports, airports, telecommunications and water infrastructure.
Mengameli uphinze wakhuluma ngalomthelela lokhona wempi leqhubekako emkhathini kweRussia neUkraine.
Just as countries were beginning to recover in the aftermath of COVID-19, the global economy was further and has been further weakened by the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the geopolitical contestation that is underway. As the UN Conference on Trade and Development noted earlier this year, food and energy crises, surging inflation, debt tightening, and the climate emergency are all contributing to one of the lowest rates of global economic growth in decades.
Mengameli Ramaphosa ke uphekethelwe tindvuna letehlukene letifaka ekhatsi indvuna yetekutsengiselana, yetekulima, yetimali kanye ke nakomishana welibhange ngodla.
Sikhulu setulu seNelson Mandela Bay Museum Dr. Vuyani Boy sivete imicimbi letawubanjwa kukhumbula lo libeka ngumengameli wakuleli Nelson Mandela lenyanga letako. Lokhu ke kutawufaka ekhatsi inkulumo ye-International Nelson Mandela nekuvulwa kwesithombe sa Nelson Mandela ngumengameli wakuleli Cyril Ramaphosa.
Enkosi kakhulu apho sikhoyo ngoku sisequnu nalapho ke uCEO kamhlambe Ngqonyela ejoyina Nelson Mandela Museum idakanca inqubo ezawuthi zilandelwe xa kujongwa kulenyanga kaJuly. Uzakhumbula ukuba ke utata Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela wathi ke walandulela kwiminyaka elishumi eyadlulayo. Kungoko ke iNelson Mandela Museum izama ukuthi ke ibeke inqubo ezokwazi ukuba zixhamlise abantu zifundise abantu kulandelwe nevalues zikatata Nelson Mandela. Kodwa ngoku dinaye ugqirha uBoy ozokwazi ukubadakanca mhlambe ezinqubo mhlambe gqirha masikwamkele kuqala apha enqubeni.
Ndiyabulela msasasa enkosi kakhulu.
Mhlambe zeziphi izona izinto oqonda ukuba esibalekile abantu baseMzantsi Afrika mabazazi enzawuthini ilandele ekhondweni lazo njengoba siqala inyanga kaJuly?
Njengoba siqala lenyanga kaJuly sisazi okokuba nge-18 kaJuly ngumhla wokuzalwa kukabawo Nelson Mandela. Thina siNelson Mandela Museum sizimisele okokuba senze nazo zonke izinto ezawukhumbuza abantu baseMzantsi Afrika ngomsebenzi kabawo Nelson Mandela. Phakathi kwezo zinto esizawuzenza siza kutyhila imifanekiso eqingqiweyo lento kuthiwa zizitatyu ezibonakalisa imisebenzi kabawo Nelson Mandela. Istatyu sokuqala siza kube sisenziwa phaya ezantsi eMthatha eBhunga Building apho kanye lo mzi ugcine izipho zikabawo Nelson Mandela ukhoyo Nelson Mandela Museum. Sokuqala istatyu ke sawuba lapho sona eso sibonakalisa ubawo Nelson Mandela njengengqonyela kwezopolitiko nanjengengqonyela kwezoburhulumente nanjengengqonyela ekulweni amalungelo abantu. Siphinde ke sibe nesinye istatyu esesibini umfanekiso oqingqiweyo wona uza kufumaneka kanye apho uba uNelson Mandela wakhulela khona kwindawo ekuthiwa kuseQunu. Lowo ke umfanekiso ubonakalisa uba uNelson Mandela njengomntu grounded kwinkcubeko yakhe, kwimbali yakhe, kumafa akhe, njengomntu wasezilalini nanjengomntu othanda abantu. Eso ke istatyu sabanjalo sizawuphinda ke kwangalomhla umnye wange-18 July siphinde sinikezele ngelibrary, iziko lencwadi kwisikolo esibizwa ngokuba iZingisa Comprehensive High School elapha eMthatha.
Siyabonga kakhulu Gqirha uBoy. Kanti ke enye yezinto katheke wasidakanya ixesha ke senza udlwana ndlebe nondaba kungaphathi kakuhle ngabantu abathile abasebenzisa igama kaTata Nelson Mandela ukufumana mhlawumbe ke izinto eziya ezipokotweni zabo mhlawumbe ke ukufezekisa imfuno zabo besebenzisa igama kaTata Mandela. Kanti ke apha ekuhlaleni bakhona ke bathi ke noko bayafuna ukuba babe nawo bakwazi ukungena ngaphakathi bakwazi ukubona ingcwaba kaTata Mandela kuba oko wathi wabekwa phayana baze banje likulandawo abalazi bakanye bamhlawumbe linjani bathi ke bacela mhlawumbe bavunyelwe uba bangene balibone so that ukwazi ba i-tourists mhlawumbe abakhenkethi bakwazi ukufikelela pha kumanibele kwe studio.
Sikubutile ke mbukeli ukuthi njengoba lamuhla siphetha inyanga yebantu labasha ingabe insha inaka kangakanani kule live uphendule ngalendlela.
Akhona okuncane umsakazo ngathi uyajabulela mawuyintsha yase South Africa ngani ngoba mawuthi yabuka ngabona ngokuthi kuthiwa umntwana 35 years akusafanele ukuthi aqashwe kodwa eParliament egcwele ogogo nomkhulu lapha abana 70 years. So nje South Africa kukho esingathi siyakubongaza siyintsha. Ungafunda ugogodo ube namajazi uhlala ekhaya awekho amathuba omsebenzi.
Sihlele emakhaya imisebenzi ayikho abantwana ba like iyouth yabhema kubhenywa ama drugs so like angiboni mina usito lokuthi like njenge youth siyakhunjulwa nje.
Njengoba namuhla kuphethwa inyanga yebantu labasha. Kwangathi singanakwa sibantu labasha. Jo umsebenzi ungekho ungako ubona abantu labasha bagcwele itradeni babhema tidzakamiva ngekuswelakala kwemsebenzi.
Abantu abasha banakwa kakhulu. Bayanxuswa futhi ukuthi bafunde baphumelele empilweni. Sekunemsebenzi namanje kuthiwa ama-internship nama-learnership lapho kufuneka from 18 to 35 kubheke kakhulu ebantwini abasha.
Kuningi okusamele kwenziwe uhulumeni when it's come to abantu abasha. Imisebenzi ayikho, abantu abasha bafundile bagogodile bahleli namajazi ekhaya, imisebenzi ayikho.
Umbono ke wembukeli SABC ngeke ethweswe ukuthi iphendulela ngawo. Emidlalo umqeqeshi weBanyana Banyana Desiree Ellis uthi kude umdlali lo nesiciniseko sekuthi utawuqala nemidlalo kunzebe yemhlaba yalabasikati etawubanjelwa eAustralia naseNew Zealand ngekubambisana. Ellis uthi badlali baleli qembu labanesipiliyoni basita abadlali labaqalako kuba kuleli qembu nalekindvo lenhle. iBanyana itawutfola netulu neSweden kumdlalo wekuqala eWellington mhla tingemashumi kule nyanga letako.
Umdlalo wokugcina kwebungani weBanyana Banyana neBotswana ngelisondvo utaba lithuba lokutilungiselela inzebe yemhlaba yalabasikati. Leli qembu kekutomela likhombise kuTethemba nekuthi ke ligweme kuniketa licembu labadlala nalo ema-free kicks etindzaweni etiyingoti. Kanti ke nokushaya emagoli indvo lekumele bayende. KuTethemba kwaleli qembu kuyindvo labanayo njengoba ke baya kulomgcugcelwano baboshampiyoni belivekati leAfrika.
We have to make sure that they get better. We have to make sure that they stay competitive. And the competitive nature comes with wanting to be in their starting lineup. Because I'm sure when you go to the World Cup, you don't just want to be sitting on the bench. You want to make sure that you start. And I think that is where the competitive edge is going to come, where players are going to raise their hands. Because you can only play 11 players at a time. And sometimes you might not even utilize the whole squad like you did at WAFCON.
Kutaba kokuqala ukuthi ke kunzebe yemhlaba yalabasikati ibe nemaqembu langemashumi lamathathu nakubili. iBanyana Banyana ke itofuna ukuthi ibona indlulela esigabeni semkhumula jazz.
We've got what it takes to progress, looking at the qualities that we have in the team, the experience also. The previous encounter, it was a learning curve for us. So now with being African champs and with the hopes that we carry of the nation, I think we have what it takes to progress. We will take it one game at a time. We're not going to get carried and we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. Firstly, we need to get over Sweden, then Argentina, and then Italy.
Our first and main focus is on Sweden. We can't look at the other teams already and plan for that. We have to take it one game at a time. Yes, there are certain things that we are aware of and what they're going to do and try to do. But I think if you look at the South American style of play versus our style of players, it's a lot similar. And so I think that will be a little bit more easier in terms of analyzing them.
Liqhawe le-Africa Cup of Nations labasikati lelatitholela emagoli amabili lithi-ke batobe bagcile ekusebenisaneni kakhulu.
First of all, since it's my first World Cup, I can say before anything else, there's a lot of emotions, there's nervousness, but after all, I believe that I am capable of anything. So it's about me being myself and also getting all the support I can get from my teammates and also working together as a team so that we can be able to achieve whatever we want to achieve.
Ibanyana ke iya kulomgqugquzelane njengoba inesifiso sokuthi indebe yemhlaba labasikati ibanjelwe kuleli nga-2027. Lokonta ukuthi ke kumele babe nemgqugquzelane lotoshiya abantu babambewa ngaphansi.
Yes, South Africa is bidding for 2027 FIFA World Cup. That will be incredible for FIFA to come to Africa, and it will be nice for us to host the World Cup in Africa. It will be the first African country to host the World Cup, creating opportunities, job opportunities for our people in Africa, and also giving an opportunity for that youngster, to showcase their talent in African soil.
Leli qembu licedza kwemukela sihlabani lesidlala eMelika Thembi Kgatlana. Lo wagcina kudlalela leli qembu kumgqugquzelano weAFCON kulomnyaka lophelile ngenyanga yaKholwane ngenxa yokulimala.
Ikuca lapha ke talamuhla ngemva kwetolo sikhona simo selitulu sikuvalelise ke mbukeli njengoba bekude kugcina la tethu zimade kube isikhathi lesitako sitawuphinde sihlangane futhi.